Thanks for your support as a channel member, Rens Nans! Lewis Hamilton has closed his 12-year stint with Mercedes, finishing P4 in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. But it's been one heck of a rollercoaster journey, and I have picked 5 of my favourite Lewis Hamilton Mercedes victories to share with you today. Hello folks, and welcome to a brand new video on the channel, and here today I'm going to share with you 5 of my most memorable Lewis Hamilton victories with Mercedes. 246 races. They became the most successful team and driver combination in F1 history. They won 6 Drivers' World Championships together, 8 Constructors' titles, a record-breaking 84 race victories. It has been quite the journey for Lewis and Mercedes, a move that many people, including myself, doubted back in 2012 when Lewis made the seismic leap from race-winning McLaren to very much midfield Mercedes at the time. But what an inspired choice it was. So today I'm going to share with you 5 of my favourite victories for Lewis and Mercedes during their 12 years together. Before I share my top 5, a couple of honourable mentions. The 2020 Portuguese Grand Prix, which was the race where Lewis broke the all-time win record, which was held by Michael Schumacher. And then 2019's Monaco Grand Prix, which was the first race after the death of Niki Lauda, who had been so influential in convincing Lewis to join Mercedes from McLaren back in 2012. And Niki played a big part in Lewis's success once he was at the Brackley-based team as well. So they're 2 that maybe could have made the list. Let me know in the comments which races you will remember fondly of Lewis and Mercedes' partnership together. But here are my top 5 Lewis and Mercedes victories. First up is Lewis's first victory for Mercedes, the 2013 Hungarian Grand Prix. He hadn't won since Texas the previous year, his last win with McLaren, but this race he started from pole, having started many already that season from the top spot. But this was a car with Mercedes that was notoriously harsh on its tyres. It had issues controlling the temperatures of the very sensitive Pirellis that season, and many people expected Lewis to actually end up going backwards around the Hungaroring, but Mercedes had mastered the tyre temperature issues, and Lewis won the race. He put a stunning pass on Mark Webber to keep the lead just after he left the pit lane from his second stop, and it was one of 8 memorable wins around the Budapest circuit. That one was always going to make the list because it was where the journey of winning with Mercedes for Lewis began. It was a very important step for him to take. Next up is a race that everyone will remember, the 2018 German Grand Prix. A car failure left Lewis 14th on the grid, while his title rival at the time, Sebastian Vettel, snatched a memorable home pole position. Lewis moved his way through the field on harder tyres, and as he switched to the super softs later on, the rain started to fall. Ferrari had kind of fumbled their team orders and their strategy, and then Sebastian Vettel made that mistake at the Sachs curve, and that was the end of his title bid, really. He was never the same again, and Hamilton held off Bottas at the restart, a little bit of team orders in play at Mercedes, and the title momentum swung firmly in the British driver's favour. Vettel never recovered that season or in the seasons that followed, and his career ended in 2022 at Aston Martin. The third race win on this list is the 2021 Brazilian Grand Prix. Possibly Lewis's best ever drive. He'd taken pole position for sprint qualifying that year, but was actually disqualified because his rear wing had a fault which allowed the DRS flap to open too wide, which meant he was in breach of the regulations. He was sent to the back of the grid for the sprint, which was setting the grid for the Grand Prix, and he went from P last to 5th with some outrageous overtaking in those laps. I think it was like 24 laps he had to make those moves, and he moved himself up the order. But he had another setback on Sunday because he already had a 5-place grid penalty hanging over him heading into the race weekend for an extra internal combustion engine part in his Mercedes power unit. So he had to drop back to 10th on the grid. Despite that, Hamilton surged through the field again. He chased down race leader Max Verstappen, and despite Verstappen's best efforts, Lewis still managed to pass him and go on to win. It reignited his title push, and sadly he did miss out on that coveted 8th World Championship that year, but what a drive that was at Interlagos. 4th on this list is the 2024 British Grand Prix. It'd been a long time in the making, this victory. 2.5 years since his previous win in Saudi Arabia in 2021. Lewis showed everything that has made him a 7-time world champion and a winner of over 100 Grand Prix. He mastered changing conditions, having started on the front row alongside his teammate George Russell. He held off Lando Norris's McLaren and Max Verstappen's Red Bull, who were in arguably faster cars. Red Bull were in a bit of a dip, but McLaren really should have won that race, and yet Lewis managed to pull it off. It was a very emotional win because it was some 900 days since his previous victory. It was a very real moment of emotion for himself, his family, and his fans. And the final race that makes my top 5 is the 2020 Turkish Grand Prix. Mercedes had been dominant in 2020, that COVID hit year, but the Istanbul circuit was newly relayed and it proved to be more like an ice rink as the drivers struggled to find grip. It was a circuit that if you could warm up your tyres quickly, you would be fast. Lance Stroll took pole position for Force India, and Max Verstappen looked the likely winner, but he had a spin forcing him to stop earlier than expected, and that gave the opportunity to Lewis Hamilton. Hopes had been low on race day as he started from 6th, but smart strategy to run the intermediate tyres to basically slicks meant Mercedes kept their tyre temperature, giving them pace, and it allowed Lewis to clinch the win, taking it with his 7th World Championship as well. An unbelievable performance, one of the more surprising victories that Lewis has pulled off. But once he got in the lead, there really was just no catching him. So they are my top 5 Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes victories. Let me know in the comments if I've missed any. And yeah, that is the end of a chapter in Lewis's life and his career. But as one book closes, one story ends, another begins. Forza Ferrari. You're the best, fans. It's bye for now.